They had talked and argued for years, trying, they said, to find a way to prevent it. But they failed. No one can be sure who started it, and really that is unimportant. It did happen. The atomic war. It was short, lasted about 48 hours. Within 2 weeks, 92% of the human race had perished to bomb and radiation. Those left, with their birth rate below 1.4 per union, turned to robotic automation devices to help them rebuild their cities and maintain a high standard of living. The first exploratory steps in the development of electronic brains had been taken prior to the atomic war. These early models were bulky and required large buildings to house them, but they merely needed refining. One of the first steps was the magnetic integrator neuron duplicator, a device 1/100th of the size of a golf ball which duplicated portions of the human nervous system and carried out learning processes. Automation was also well on its way. But these too were cumbersome and needed further development before the two elements could be joined in the series R1 robot. This first robot was quite ungainly, and its functions were limited. But refinements came in rapid succession, and soon the R20 was capable of all the thought processes and functions of a man. However, humans found it psychologically impossible to work side by side with a machine that they had to converse with, and which in most instances could outthink them. Thus it was that Hollister Evans perfected the R21, the first humanoid robot. This story concerns them, the clickers, as they were disparagingly referred to by some humans.
Report back to duplication immediately and have the corrections made.
You can still alter your decision if this is against your circuits.
My circuits are unoffended.
I suppose it takes courage to submit to a thalamic transplant.
As an unadapted R34, he has no fear circuits. Consequently, he doesn't need courage.
He will before long. Raven's operation will convert him to an R96 with all the emotions of a human.
Only 4 points less than human. I wonder what it's like.
You will learn how to laugh, how to cry, be afraid and hate. To become an R96 is a real sacrifice. With this one, we will have 16. 10 males and 6 females.
At times, I think we should turn the entire program over to the humans.
It really shouldn't be the responsibility of robots.
The humans aren't ready for it yet. It's still illegal to improve a robot higher than an R70.
That law was lobbied through by the Order of Flesh and Blood.
The order is becoming more powerful every day. They virtually dictate to the police.
There are always ultra-conservative pressure groups set against advancement.
But why? Why? It's not in the best interests of humans to hold back the development of robots.
They won't for long. We're filling key positions at R96s as fast as we get them.
We have to study for years to learn what you pick up by plugging into a brain for 2 hours.
We don't refer to the father-mother as a brain.
Your father-mother's an electronic computer, just a machine.
Your parents were machines. It's just that they were engineered with flesh and bones. Neither are ideal components.
You came off a production line.
I know who created me. Hollister Evans in the Mark 47. You have to accept your creator on faith.
Who created your creator?
Yours. You see, we are brothers, aren't we?
I ought to know better than to argue with you clickers. Can't beat your logic.
Humans aren't allowed to set foot in a robot temple. Yet we saw a man come out accompanied by a robot. I want to know why.
Those guys from the Brotherhood should be here by now.
But an R100 would be one of us.
A perfect man. As good as we are.
He'd be better. He'd be perfect. Which of us could match that?
How does he fall short?
About the only power he lacks is that of self-reproduction.
The highest type improvement allowed by law is an R70, and that in limited number. What alterations were made?
I located and removed a small unit from the thalamic region at the base of the brain. It seemed to be the source.
The source of what?
We can't be sure. You see, all robots can see, hear, and feel. It's necessary to their function.
Naturally.
This one could taste and smell. And what's even more interesting, he had a complete human memory.
Those refinements are useless to a robot.
Not entirely. This one thought he was a man.
I don't see how you could do it.
Pax and I are in rapport. We're in harmony. He understands me perfectly. He instinctively knows what I want. I just think of something and it's done, because he thinks of it at the same time. There are no arguments. He's dedicated to keeping me happy. And I am happy.
You love that machine?
I love Pax.
And it doesn't make any difference to you that he could be doing the same thing for anyone else who bought him.
You're wrong. If he'd been bought by someone else, he'd be in rapport with them.
I don't understand you, Craigus.
You're not supposed to. Do you expect me to be friendly toward you?
If you want to be.
Well, I don't.
If you wanted to hurt me, I'd like you to know that you have.
How?
By humiliating yourself. You know I must consider your well-being above anything else.
That makes me feel better.
Good.
Can't you see they're killing us with consideration? Spreading us into atrophy? Don't you realize the implication of that? If everything is done for us, there'll be no incentive. No need for personal achievement. Even now we're losing ground.
Losing ground?
Ground. Knowledge. Machines do all the work for us. Why should we learn mathematics when the computers can find the solutions better and faster? We don't even control them anymore. The brains are designed by other brains. The robots improve themselves. We don't know how. We give them data, they give us answers.
We only supply means to your ends.
Yeah, our end.
Every day and every way, we're becoming weaker and weaker.
And you're helping us over the hill.
We are over the hill. I can't stop us. Neither can you.
First, there were the plants. They developed into animals which ate the plants. The animals were small, but they grew. And the larger animals ate the smaller animals.
What does that mean?
So far, according to history, each dynasty devises its own end. The animal develops a brain, and the brain destroys the animal.
Our brains conceived you robots. Are you threatening to destroy us?
Oh, no. We are by no means sure that we are the next step. It's just that in view of the cycle, we are the best we have to offer to help you. The cycle is rather inexorable.
That's treason.
No, it isn't. It's logic. I have to be logical.
Maxine is an authority on political science. Her father's a director at the Ministry of Politics.
Something I've wondered about. Things are run by the hierarchy of ministries. What is the exact function of the Ministry of Politics?
For the coordination of the other ministries. Then, too, they service the selector.
Politics was once the means of choosing the leaders. Now, the machines do it.
Machines merely analyze the data given to them by us. The leaders are selected as a result of that analysis.
Do you know how the machine analyzes the data?
Well, no, not exactly.
Then how do you know if the father-mother uses all the data you give it? How do you know whether or not supplementary data is considered?
We don't.
Then you might almost say that the machines elect the leaders, that the Ministry of Politics is expendable. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm circuited to be logical and yet not to offend. That sometimes poses an insoluble problem.
I understand.
Sure, they say the birth rate is 2.8 per contract, but over 25% of the newborn are useless mutants. The average rate is 1.4 per union. We're losing ground. We're in a headlong race towards disappearance. Machines will take over soon enough. As a man, I have to forestall that as long as I can.
Kragus? Will you contract with me?
It's impossible. The robots are organizing a pseudo-religion. They refer to their recreation centers as their temples, the master computer as the father-mother. When they report there for their periodic rechargings, they receive as well all the information given the computers for analysis in the interim.
But doesn't that mean that within a year, every individual robot will be in possession of all the knowledge in the world?
Exit humanity.
But they can only operate in our benefit. Well, that's Rule 1 in the manual.
Tonight, for the first time in history, a robot killed a man. Rule 1 must no longer exist.
Are you always so gloomy?
He served well. I think he deserves to know the truth, and I'd like to try an experiment.
Is that safe? None of the existing R-96s are aware that they're robots. The ones we tried to tell cease to function.
They ceased to function because they were without faith and hope, important elements to humans. To die and be resurrected as a robot is a deep shock. The sudden realization that they are experiencing all the emotions of a human and yet are mechanical is an even deeper shock. Their future becomes hopeless.
But what hope can you offer them?
I just completed the final stages of an experiment prior to my recent death and recreation. Krigus, are you familiar with the R-96?
The Order knows they exist, and we know that you were... The real Dr. Raven was instrumental in their construction.
Creation of an R-96 requires a modified humanoid-type robot and the body of a human being, which has been dead less than 6 hours.
What do? Change brains?
In effect. We perform a thalamic transplant, but that's a misnomer. We draw off everything that makes a man peculiar to himself. His learning, his memory. These interreacting constitute his personality, his philosophy, capability, and attitude. The human brain is merely the vault in which the man is stored.
And not a very ingenious vault.
Ingenious enough to create you clickers.
Creation is only the result of the fusion of facts which haven't been previously related.
Fascinating.
There's one other point that may be of interest to you.
What?
Tell him.
Kragus, you are a robot.
A clicker? Me? Now, isn't that something?
You are one of them. Maxine is another.
Look, you can tell the world I'm a clicker, but you can't tell me.
Craigus, they think we're something or someone else.
One of our robots brought what was left of you to us. We barely got you in time. We did make you a bit thinner. You had a tendency to be plump.
That's right. After that, my clothes didn't fit.
What do you do now?
Wait for the leaders to die, and then reactivate them. When the time is right, you will announce that you've achieved immortality. When the rush for applications is over, you'll probably be deified.
So the machines take over.
Craigus, is it true that there will be nothing but machines? That we are machines?
Yes. Yes, it's true. Machines. But you're a beautiful machine.
You know beauty. How do you feel toward Maxine?
I love her.
And you?
I love him very much.
And that's a lot for a couple of godless, soulless robots.
Are you godless, Craigus? Search yourself. It's important. Are you godless?
No. No, I don't think so. I'm not.
Then you can't be soulless. Look, a man may have his leg amputated. Is his soul decreased by that loss?
No.
Not even a fraction of 1%?
Of course not.
What if a man loses both legs?
A negative can't be compounded. The soul would be the same. You just get artificial legs.
You've just received an artificial body. A new body. Ageless. Tireless. Disease-free and renewable every 200 years.
I guess nothing has changed except maybe a few chemicals.
In effect.
Well, that transplant must include the soul.
No, only the memory which includes the faith that there is a soul. Whatever it is, you seem to have it.
And when the entire human race has been transplanted, death will cease to exist.
And birth will cease to exist, too. The most precious hope of every woman.
How do you think these two R-96s would like to pick up 4 points?
You can raise them to R100s? Make them propagate themselves?
I worked it all out prior to my recent death and resurrection. I didn't want to turn it over to you until I didn't need you anymore. Now I don't, since we're all on the same side. How about it, you two? It'll take several simple operations. Hardly more difficult than removing a rib. Somebody has to be first.
Self-procreating.
It's a pretty sloppy way of doing things, but it fulfills a certain psychological need.
Paradoxical, isn't it? I spend my life seeking immortality on one hand and seeking to destroy it on the other.
I love you, Craigus.
Of course, the operation was a success, or you wouldn't be here.
You had a tendency to be plump.
And the larger animals ate the smaller animals.
What does that mean?
You had a tendency to be plump.
I have to be logical.
You had a tendency to be plump.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm circuited to be logical and yet not to offend. That sometimes poses an insoluble problem.
You had a tendency to be plump.